So I hope you've had a productive afternoon so far with so many talks and panelists. I'm sure you weren't able to catch them all, but please be reminded that everything is recorded so that you can come back and watch everything again later. So we're now on to our next session. And now that you've heard some practical tips on how to take your design journey to the next level, it's time to zoom out and take a bigger perspective on how the design industry in Southeast Asia has evolved over the past few years. What are some of the latest trends and challenges for building a design practice in the region? These are some of the questions that our next speaker, Randy Hunt, the head of design at Grab, or Southeast Asia's super app as we know it, will be answering. Hi, Randy.
Hello.
So you have the opportunity to ask Randy questions right after the talk. So fire them away in the chat section, and I will be right back to get them answered. So yeah, over to you, Randy.
Okay, great. You can hear me okay? Hi, everyone. Very pleased to be here. And I wanted to give a huge thanks to Lamtai, Zoiguen, Tao, and UXVN for having me. I know these things are always a large effort to put on, so I always appreciate everyone putting in this effort for the community. Really great. Okay. So I'm going to share with you some personal perspective today and take you through a bit of this journey, personal journey, and some things I've learned along the way that I'd love to share with you all. And it's really about going through this stage of understanding from designing for to designing in to designing with. And I'd like to end this bit of time we have together with a sort of a small challenge for us all. Maybe it's a big challenge. So just a brief, minute or two about me. I had another design life before I got into UX and digital products and things, but I spent the last 14 years or so building teams, growing companies, and designing marketplaces. Really software product design, as well as brand and other communications design around that. First, this marketplace called Supermarket that I co-founded, a marketplace called Artsy, another marketplace called Etsy. And look, when I joined Grab 2 years ago, I was looking for many things at a personal level, but there was three that stand out the most. One was I wanted to use what I'd learned building teams and designing marketplaces and be able to apply them to something new. I really wanted to build on that experience I'd had. And then the second thing is I wanted to be challenged. I really wanted to be challenged through new cultural experiences, new business experiences, and new life experiences. Certainly Grab had that to offer. And then I wanted to work on products and services that met everyday needs for many people. So while I'd worked on marketplaces for a long time and had developed some level of comfort and maybe even expertise sometimes, although I feel like a constant student, these had always been serving sort of niche audiences. Now, some of those niche audiences may have gotten very big, but they still weren't sort of mass or broad products. And I'd always been interested in that. Just what's something that serves people sort of every day and these really fundamental needs? And certainly Grab and its many, many product and services offerings across the whole super app ecosystem speak to that. And then the I mean, as you all know, the size, the scale, the reach of Grab certainly satisfies the many people who are part of this as well. But what really, I think, went from me thinking Grab might be a good professional opportunity to saying, wow, I definitely need to do this. Like, I'm going to move across the planet, literally the longest flight in the world from where I was living to Singapore. And the thing that changed my mind really, or that convinced me, is when I met the leaders at Grab. I was impressed by their commitment to the vision, and then their desire to really serve the people in the communities of Southeast Asia. It was super sincere. You could just feel it when you met them. And as they framed the work ahead for me, the way they described the challenge was like this. They said, we don't want you to think about design for Grab. We want you to think about design for Southeast Asia. Yeah. And that's a really big, it's a big idea. And it sounded so impossibly hard that I wouldn't necessarily know where to begin. And I think that that level of discomfort and uncertainty was a really good sign. It said, you should definitely try this. Yeah. And so there's something tucked in here, and you might see this. Yeah. It says design for Southeast Asia. Now, of course, the spirit of that statement was really to serve, right? They were doing something for and on behalf of other people. But my thinking has evolved, and I'll challenge you with some of the things in that evolved thinking as well. But I think the spirit here remains the same. How do we serve an entire region and think about it for the long term? Yeah. So designing for. Today, if you were on the design team at Grab, you'd be able to go to our some internal tools and sites we have. One of those is we present this design vision right back to the company. And it says it right there, the thing I just told you about. It says, this isn't about design for Grab, it's about design for Southeast Asia. And I still believe that. Our mission is to create experiences that people love and use every day. I really remain committed to that idea, but also to design beyond the walls of the company and think beyond our products or services. Really kind of how we show up in our lives to help and to serve other people. And so if you go to that simple statement, though, design for Southeast Asia, while it's big, it's pretty clear. But to design for, an audience, a customer, or a user, of course, you must understand the context they're in. Now, that's probably not a radically surprising concept to anyone here. You are attending a UX conference, so you have some level of interest in user experience. But what is important in this shift in thinking, I think, is when you're designing for something, it's kind of on the outside, right? But if you really want to do that well, you need to understand that context more deeply, right? More deeply. And that led me down this path of wanting to learn more about design in Southeast Asia, right? What was happening already, and what was emergent, what had happened historically. Right? So I started to just get real curious. And I think that's part of the fun of any job, really. Gosh, working for any business, any customer that you've never worked for before, or solving some new problems, is that kind of curiosity place for a designer. Can always play there. So I just tried to seat myself in some things, sort of what is going on? Right? What are people talking about? Who designed the buildings that I'm walking by or that I see when I visit different cities around Southeast Asia? What's the cultural, political context of those? What designs are getting made? Which designs that are getting made are really popular? Which ones are maybe successful, even though they're maybe to my eyes and from my experience don't seem like they could or should be? And why is that? Again, what's been happening in the past? And what's happening in other sort of cultural spheres around the design community, business, the arts community, things like even publishing. I mean, you'll see I'm showing you these pictures of books, not because this is all about, books, although I think it's quite interesting to look outside of, what just comes up so easily in a quick search online or something, kind of put in the work to think slowly and deeply about some things. And what are designers caring about? What are they treating as important? What are their personal stories? And of course, when I started to look at the output, this was really great. And some of those things I just, flashed by on the screen in those pictures of books. Some of them have, designers' sort of biographies or their personal stories. But there's something missing. I felt like I was understanding more the output or sort of snapshot in time from whenever those things were made. But I wasn't getting a sense of what the community was thinking today or feeling today. So I decided to start this simple survey. There's nothing radical in this idea. As you'll see, a Google form with a nice image at the top from Unsplash. Probably took me 15 minutes to put this together. I think I spent more time thinking about that list of design practices than getting the survey up. And it was a quick thought to say, let's start with some seed questions, basically 4, 5, 6 questions to try to get a pulse of what's going on around Southeast Asia in the design community today, and who even identified as being part of the design community. That's why you see all these things here: design education, landscape architecture. I really love an integrated design practice and an integrated design community. So while I'm here with you around the premise of UX design, I think these are all interrelated, and we have a lot to learn and grow from one another. So the goal here was really to see if there are more common themes across designers in Southeast Asia. Yeah, and this survey is still open, actually, and I'd love your input. I'll put up the URL at the end of this talk, and would just love to hear what you have to say and add to it. You can add your email address, and I'll send back some more interesting things in the future. There's really 3 key questions in here. Like, what do you see as the greatest opportunity for you personally in the next 5 to 10 years? Just wanted to understand where designers saw the kind of the professional potential, where they saw things or hoped things going. Yeah. The next was, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing design in Southeast Asia, and why? And, largely the answers here had to do with infrastructure, underappreciation of the practice, maybe feeling like clients or employers didn't fully understand design, questions about are people being paid fairly and things like this. What's interesting to me, having come from a very different context, is that I've heard those questions for my entire design career in different places. Now, it's not to say that we all ask them for the same reason or that the answers are the same relative to other places. But design's position in a professional and business context has certainly evolved overall, right? That's why you see, yesterday, Airbnb, right? A company co-founded by 2 designers, went public in the US. I mean, the fact that it's worth a lot of money in and of itself isn't probably the interesting part, although we should celebrate that. I think that's an accomplishment. More that the design-centric company has achieved such a great feat. I mean, maybe the last one we've seen at that scale, of course, is Apple. So something really interesting there. But what I think is unique as we think about these challenges is then the context under which to address them. What's the starting place of those challenges when designers say, hey, clients don't understand us, or coworkers don't understand or value us? What are we going to do about that? And what are the unique opportunities, maybe in the circumstances we're under, to help improve that. Yeah. And the third was, where do you see the greatest opportunity for design to create a positive impact in Southeast Asia? Where can we do that? So I hope you're thinking about these questions yourself, as we're running through these. As I'm reading them back to you now, I'm pondering them again anew each time. So it's, where's that personal opportunity and potential in the future? What are the greatest challenges? What might be standing in our way? And where's the impact that we think we can create? And so a few themes emerged across the survey. One around talent and pay, one around celebrating Southeast Asia, really the identity of Southeast Asia in a way. And I question, is there a Southeast Asia? Because we know that every country and market and different cultures and subcultures within them are very, very different. In fact, maybe one of the unifying characteristics of Southeast Asia is just how diverse and different many places are. And then also themes around diversity, inclusion, and kind of localized experiences. But as I was doing the research around these themes, I started to come across some other awesome stuff people are doing already that gets at some of these themes. So I'm going to share just a few with you. There's so many more. I'm sure you know of many in Vietnam and beyond. I'm intentionally not giving you Vietnam examples here, just to, open the lens a little bit and share some other examples. These are really worthwhile efforts. And gosh, if they're not already happening in your community, one of you here in this conference should be the person to start it or collaborate with the people here. So one was around talent and pay. Right? And so a product designer named Jonathan Yap, I think here in Singapore, started this project called the Design Pay Transparency Project. You can see the URL there. Again, just asking people to anonymously submit different things like salary information along with years of experience and other things, and you can view them by different country and market. A really, really awesome tool and resource to be available for everyone. And of course, these kinds of tools aren't comprehensive. It's not meant to answer everything. And the data will always be incomplete, but it's very helpful directional data. It's a really, really cool thing to have. Around this theme of celebrating Southeast Asia, just recently came across this awesome site called the Singapore Graphics Archive. Just such cool, historical references, all sorts of logos and identities and published pieces from government agencies and businesses from the past. So really cool from a historical and almost preservationist standpoint, but also just really, really cool graphics, right? Just good looking stuff, really nicely presented. It's done by a guy named Justin Zhuang. And then similarly, not unlike the design, talent and pay work, but I noticed a designer named Izwan Ismail in Malaysia trying to almost do like a census in a way of the design community. Kinds of education, years of experience, breakdown by all sorts of things, gender and other kind of demographic information to really just map a picture. Super cool. It's at malaysiadesignlandscape.com, where you can both submit, participate in his sort of research as well as see the results. Really cool. The other thing that's happening, it's like I discover all these people doing great work. I try to answer and address some of these themes that came out, just from my own lightweight research. And I should say, I think if Leva, who I think gave a talk earlier today about UX writing, was a great collaborator in helping me sort of synthesize and look at some of the output of that survey. And so I just want to give her the props and credit for her contributions there, helping synthesize and summarize some of that work. So as I also started to meet more of the community, gosh, here we are at UXVN. I've met people in the sketch community, some sketch meetups in different markets, Malaysia and Singapore, and then the Friends of Figma kind of community, just big, vibrant, really cool stuff going on. Some service design groups, UX Plus conference that happened in the Philippines a few months back. Just really, really awesome stuff happening. And I think what I'm observing is that there is just such a healthy and vibrant community of people sharing information, sharing resources, educating one another. And it is so, so awesome. And I have to say that coming from a different context and landing here, there is a different kind of energy. I come from a design community that's very generous and very friendly, and one that, the community I was a part of in the US was definitely would help each other out. It felt like a friendly and welcoming community. But I have to say the volume and the energy that design communities I've met here, it just blows it out of the water, basically. More positive energy, more learning, more rapid change. It's just a really, really beautiful thing. But one of the things that came up in this, some of this research I did was like a lot of kind of learning from other places. It felt like, can we what's happening in the West, and can we copy or sort of learn from or apply those things, or what's happening in China? Do we learn from and apply those things? And it just makes me wonder if is not something unique that needs to emerge, something more unique that can and should cut through. I don't know yet. I don't know the answer, but I haven't quite seen it. And I feel like this, many designers who participated in that survey expressed a similar thing. So I promise you, it's not just my, it's not just my observation. I think there's something where I don't think we've seen it yet, but it's going to happen. It's emergent somewhere. And that brings me to this designing with theme. Right? So there's one other book I spent time with over the last, I've been here a couple of years, maybe my first year, that I really appreciate, by a design critic and educator named Victor Pepanek. And he spent a number of years in different countries for a long time, in Mexico and in Indonesia, doing some really important sort of on the ground integrated design work, physical hardware, kind of industrial design work, architecture, interiors, communications. I think he first published this book back in the 70s or something. So, there was no UX design as we think of it today in there. But in it, it's really a collection of essays, and I'd encourage you to check it out. Really, really fun and thought-provoking things. It's amazing how much of it is still relevant today, basically all of it. There's one part where he really challenges designers to, as we think about serving others, right? Think about this design for, or design in, or in this case, designing with. He challenges designers in these 4 ways. He says there's kind of like 4 ways that a designer can help and support a community. Yeah. So the first one, he says, this is the most common, but least effective one. It's where a designer sits in an office in a city and they make something tied to the economy elsewhere. It could be about it looks and feels like the place, and maybe that becomes for tourism, or something's kind of created out of context and just delivered in. That's definitely in the design for context. And we often can think that this is good, or we could tell ourselves this is good because it's it's intended in the service of something, but good intentions maybe doesn't get it far enough. So the next, which is only marginally better from his standpoint, is for us to spend time in a community and design something suited to the needs there. And gosh, that might sound like what we all do. That might sound like normal human-centered design. That might sound like a UX design practice. This is good. This is better. But he challenges us to say that's not good enough. There's actually 2 more levels to this. The other is to actually move to the community, to be a part of the place for a long time. And to teach design. Yeah? To teach how design works. You can see this is really a long view, an investment in long view. And so the 4th version is to move to that community and to train designers to train designers. It's a multi-generational investment idea, right? How do we design with one another, with users, customers, communities, governments, in every part of our life, not just in a commercial context. But how do we teach people to teach design? I mean, one of the best ways to learn anything is to figure out how to teach it. Yeah. So I think because things are moving so quickly, the rules are being rewritten everywhere. I mean, business, cultural, political. And when rules are being rewritten, the possibilities are huge. When everything is in flux, that's the time to introduce new norms. We all know that Southeast Asia is just changing very, very rapidly. What if there's a new place for design in society? A place we haven't quite seen yet? I think these are the conditions under which to create it and introduce it. Right? Because if everything's in flux and that's the time to introduce change, I think the opportunity sits in front of us right now. What if Southeast Asia became the model for designing with its audience and customers? I don't even know what that looks like yet. That's the excitement and the challenge. But we're at this interesting time where economic development is happening very quickly, but it's fragile. Massive populations are getting exposed to certain access to technology and resources in a way they hadn't before. And lots of old infrastructure, old institutions, things we could trust in the past but we're also challenged by are getting torn down and rebuilt. So I think now is the time, right? Not to design for others, not only to design in the context of our customers or users, but to challenge ourselves and think, how can we design with them? What if we enable others to design, to create versions of the future in their model, not only in ours? Yeah. So with that, I'll wrap up and say thank you for allowing me to share with you. Hope this has been good. I look forward to your questions. And hey, I'm just going to put my this survey URL up on the screen really quick for you all to see. It's just design in se.asia. Leave that there for just a moment so you have a chance to write it down, although I'm sure we can share it back in the Slack. So gosh, thank you so much for just the opportunity to share with you all. I'm excited to chat a little bit in these questions. So thank you so much.
Wow. Wow, I have goosebumps, like such an amazing talk, Randy. And yeah, our chat box has been blowing up with questions, and amongst the many questions, we have two most popular, highly voted questions. So
okay.
we're ready for this. So the first one is, Randy, does having a mustache improve design leadership skills?
I don't think so. No. Mustache, no. I will say that one of our co-founders, when I first had a mustache, maybe last year or something, she told me I look like Luigi from Super Mario Brothers, which I consider a compliment. I think it's great. I love Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was younger, but I had a very long beard and long hair too. People always thought I was older than I was, and that sometimes helped actually. I think I looked wiser than I was.
Tip and trick for everyone. So the seriousness. So the second very popular question was, what is the link between culture and product design? And can you give young designers an example of how they are connected?
The link between culture and product design. Well, I mean, culture is a pretty big bucket itself, pretty big concept. But I would think about it like this. If culture is sort of what people do and what they create, right? So if we think about art as culture, we think about the buildings we see as culture, we think about the food that we eat as culture. We think about religion as part of culture. Then what is the relationship of product design to those things? And it's probably multi-directional, but maybe I'll describe it simply as two. One is that product design works in the context of that culture, right? So that says from maybe a religious standpoint, that what's a really concrete example I could give you? Well, something that happens in our work, like at Grab, Right? We serve customers all over Southeast Asia. Many of them in countries that have Muslim population, and we do food delivery and provide food services. And as a Muslim customer, there's certain dietary restrictions. Also, you don't typically consume alcohol if you're more religiously conservative in that case. And so that ends up coming into how you think about the product design experience. What is, can you accommodate the user's experience by understanding their needs and maybe prioritizing or emphasizing certain information? Right? That's kind of about meeting a user where they are, and that where they are is a cultural context, right? The inverse one, right? So how might product design shape culture? That's it. It's interesting, right? So imagine that, if culture is the behaviors we have, even what our spaces look like or something. We as product designers may have come up with a scheme for contactless payments, right? In which we use the vision capabilities of the camera in our phone to take a picture of a QR code, right? Which then means the QR codes need to be, sort of printed or present or distributed in all these environments. Yeah. Which means that every cafe, coffee shop, food cart, food stall has now this visual ephemera that's in it, right? Somewhere where someone maybe used to have a handwritten sign with a marker on some paper, or maybe a flyer if they were a small business or something from the print shop, now has this other visual artifact on it that carries information, right? Like QR codes are now part of culture. Right? And so these things go in both directions. Yeah. That's big. I think there's you could have an entire UXVN conference on, culture and product design. Yeah.
We're taking notes for our next conference. So one of the things you mentioned in your talk was how Southeast Asia is very vibrant and diverse in its identities. So how do you include these cultural specificities of different user groups like Vietnamese or Singaporean users in your design process, since they might have totally different behavior? And then later on top of this, you have expats and user groups who come from the West. So yeah, can you give us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is one of the major challenges. And I think you handle it a few ways, or we try to handle it a few ways. And the reason I say try is it's almost an ongoing challenge, because there doesn't seem to be a steady, static state. Because we learn more about users or customers, and we might make strides forward in some area and feeling very localized, but then we might release some new features and learn that actually kind of taking half a step back. And so it's very dynamic. But I'll give a few examples. So one is actually Grab is a very on the ground operational strength company. While we are a technology company, there are many people that work at Grab that are in all of the different countries where we have customers, in the cities, on the ground, doing things like helping driver partners come on board and finding merchants and interacting with them and things. And they end up being sort of the eyes, ears on the ground. And so they will both provide feedback saying, these are the challenges customers are having. These are the things people are asking for. This is what would help us do our job better. And sometimes there are common themes across countries or even cities, but sometimes there are also very different, unique themes, right? And so we have a whole kind of process in our product development process to take those needs and requests from the countries teams and the market teams and kind of synthesize them and make them part of a consideration set for our product roadmap. So that's one version, right? It's really how do we decide what we build and in a way to kind of localize or serve the customer. Similar, same group of people in a way, or same part of the organization, when we build things, and this can be challenging for product designers, you want to build it and ship it, but if we've built something and then a country or even sometimes a city, major cities in a market, so maybe, Ho Chi Minh or something where there's a large number of customers, really, really large city, we may even choose to, delay a release or change a release to understand the impact there, because the team on the ground may say, we're not so sure now. Maybe when we started building that, and then the market conditions today have changed to some, and they're like, customers may not like this, or this may be more challenging. So we also have sort of certain things available in different markets at different times or not at all. So that's the other way of localizing. And then more, deeper in the product design itself, looks like, considerations around what are the, payment methods and behaviors. I mean, certainly there's a level of language localization and imagery when it comes to some of the, whether it's photographic or graphic imagery, that needs to be localized in consideration for each market. Yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, that brings us nicely onto our next question, which is, can you share a specific example of when or how Grab has amplified or elevated Southeast Asian communities? So what screamed Grab's messaging or value proposition over Uber in Southeast Asia, for example?
Interesting. Okay. Well, I think, one, I'll just say I joined Grab after the sort of Uber transaction and Grab taking over from Uber. So I don't have firsthand experience from the relative relationship between the two. The one area that has been really notable to me has been an understanding of the safety and trust considerations that are just uniquely different in the market. Everything from physical safety because of the amount of sort of two-wheel transportation, but also the differences in different markets. And even the relationship of things like, fraud and fraud activity around, certain kinds of, payments, promotions, maybe even, drivers, ensuring like the driver and passenger safety in different contexts. That on the ground understanding that Grab has, and now over time, the technology too that the organization has built to both understand and then serve the customer in interesting ways. So one example might be actually a push notification that goes to a customer if their ride has gone off the expected route to say, hey, looks like you're going a different way. Is everything okay? Right? So it's like a courtesy message early. Could just be, oh, there's some traffic going around it, no big deal. So we try to get smart around that. But it's a good early sign to say, hey, if maybe someone's going in a direction they shouldn't go or something, is that maybe a safety signal? Yeah. And I think those features like that, which are kind of invisible features, right? Those don't show up in a screenshot, right? That's not part of your like marketing communications, but they're really powerful and really, really important. Yeah.
Amazing. So our last question now for you. So this is a very topical one. So this year, as you know, has been nothing short of uncertainty. So how do you build resilience as a design leader in this phase of totally unprecedented time?
Great question. How do you? I don't know. I mean, I don't mean to make a joke out of that, but I think it's an ongoing practice in a way. I think at a really fundamental level first is actually like what they tell you in the, an airplane, right? When you're watching the safety videos, you have to kind of like put your mask on first, which sounds counterintuitive because if you see there's all this activity happening around you, you just want to help everyone or you want to kind of, which is the right impulse. But actually when there's so much changing and some of it is so critical, some of it's so emotional, some of it's so physical sometimes, you have to make sure you take care of yourself so that you have the strength and sort of endurance to help and serve other people over the long term. Because the resilience is not about short term, right? It's not about like today's bad and I've got optimism for you. Tomorrow's hard, I've got direction for you. It's actually about kind of showing up consistently over time and trying to create a sense of stability. Yeah. And honestly, I personally, I think try to, take care of number one, but then quickly switch to, serving others. Yeah. And I think it's been a year of radical lessons for many people, myself included. How much information is the right amount of information? Transparency is great. Too much can be overwhelming, right? Certainly one thing is I've just learned that more communication is helpful, especially when we're kind of forced to work remote or have different, asynchronously. And honestly, I feel like I'm reminded of that almost every day. And I'm like, I should have done this more. It's like if I feel like I'm doing it too much, I'm probably just starting to do it enough. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think that's a wonderful last note to kind of remind ourselves that self-care in this time is so important as you go through this weird year. But yeah, with that, thank you so much, Randy. And yeah, it's been such an honor and
Thank you, Tom.
to have you here. And yeah, is there any last words you would like to say before you go?
Oh gosh,
Fill in your survey.
yeah, complete the survey. No, hey, I was thinking about this again the other day, and I think it's a really important theme. Some of our team at Grab has heard me say it before. And it relates to your other question, which is like a lot of serious stuff is going on. Yeah. Really, really serious, important stuff. I mean, people's lives and livelihoods are at risk. And so often day to day, we deal with like really serious work and we want to do it really well. So what I like to say is we do serious work, but don't take ourselves too seriously. You know, it's okay to turn, especially when we're working from home, turn the music up, do like, have some fun. It's okay to make jokes and enjoy the work you're doing, even when it's serious work. In fact, I think you need it even more. Yeah. So I'll leave you with that. Do your serious work, but don't take yourself too seriously.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Great.